My speech is probably always kind of going to be the thing that most of the time I'm okay with, and then other times it just really like kind of bugs me. And we've recently moved, and like being deadly serious, part of the like you're kind of the ticks and the crosses of like what I would be happy with, and like what we would kind of exclude in terms of finding a house. On that exclusion list was any postcodes that had S, B, D's in it, because I just can't pronounce them. And then when people like ask you your postcode, you're like D for Delta, and it's just yeah. So that was a complete no go. So yeah, we now have a postcode with no letters that I can't pronounce, and life is great.
I guess I've kind of found that a bit because I have a hearing impairment from having a cleft, so I wear hearing aids, and especially in like the current climate of wearing masks, it's impossible. Like I go out and I'm like, oh hi, like I'd like to post this, please, and I'm like, okay, right, I'm gonna have to guess what he would ask at this point in time in the conversation. I'm like, I think right about now is if they ask if you want first or second class, and I was like, second, and he was like, it was a yes or no. I was like, no. And I just guessed what they asked me. I'm just like, yeah, no. And I just look stupid sometimes. Like I teach my flat signs so like they can sign to me if someone says something, or like it's even just stupid things that I'll go out and like I'll get nervous to go to the shop because I'm like, it's just really nervous if like someone was to ask you, or like sometimes like you walk past a security guard and like and they'll say have a nice day, and I literally was like, oh wait, sorry, what? And they're like, have a nice day. I was like, what? I was like, what's wrong with my stuff? I was like, I haven't stolen anything. And I stood there for like a solid like 2-3 minutes having like a conversation with him. Well, conversation, but I was trying to understand that he wasn't trying to tell me that I was committing any crime, and he was just trying to tell me to have a nice day. But it's just little things like that where like going out is quite hard at the moment, because normally like when I meet people as well, like on my course, I can just be like, oh hi, and now I'm like, okay, so I'm not going to hear anything you say, so let's not have a conversation, let's just do it over text or something. So it's just a bit annoying that comes with it, because sometimes as well like people don't necessarily think that like a cleft is not always just like the scar on your face and everything to do with your mouth and everything. It can also be like your hearing and your eyes and everything. So it's like lots of different things that encompass it. And I think sometimes like that kind of stuff gets overlooked, and especially people of our age, for to have a hearing impairment. I've had so many like elderly people say to me, like when I meet my like family that, you know, like the older part of my family, they're just sometimes a bit like, oh, like it was just like, did you have your music too loud? And I'm like, not quite. I did actually have this thing called a cleft. It's kind of new. It's just sometimes like it's these misconceptions that people don't really get. So yeah, it's a bit rubbish, but hopefully it'll get better.
So I just remember, I think I must have been in about year 8, and I don't know why. I don't think it was because I was in the class or whether they do it every year, but I doubt it. But we watched a documentary in biology about like clefts and like I think it was like the Smile Train, the charity that does like operations in India, and we were just watching it. And to be honest, I think a lot of people in my school, like I never had a conversation about me having cleft. And then someone just came up to me at the end and was like, "Is that what you have?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they were like, why hasn't yours been repaired as good as theirs?" And I was like, I don't know. I guess mine must have just been a bit different, or like the surgeon did a different procedure. Like, I didn't know. I was only about what would I have been, like 12, 13 at the time, and that's just something that kind of stuck with me from then. Yeah.
I'm still not very good. Like it's more like little children when they go, "What's wrong with your face?" or "Why do you sound different?" I still panic. Like I'm 27 and I still don't know how to reply to a 5-year-old to tell them that I have a cleft. I don't know. They're just I panic and I'm like, I'm like, oh, my mouth's just a bit different. Like I don't know. I still haven't mastered that conversation. Because how do you explain to like what people do it? So and like children are just curious, but yeah, I'm not very good at like responding to the like kind of direct questions of why do you look different or why do you sound different? Like I clam up.
I think in my experience with that, I think I've just had like a stock answer that I think my mum probably gave me when I was about 4, and like every time anyone ever asks, like, oh, why or younger people, I guess, why do you look like that? I'm just like, oh, I was just born like that, and then like that's just the end of the conversation.
I don't know, I just feel the need to give them this like medical explanation. Like, I mean, a 5-year-old is really not going to care. Like, they probably, like you said, Ed, if you just tell them like, oh, I was born that way, they would be like, all right, okay, cool, and they would just move on. But I feel like the need to like start telling them like about genetics and all sorts. No, then I just panic. So yeah, that's that.
Yeah, you almost get into this like long-winded conversation that you didn't even want to, like, you feel like, oh my god, this is gonna be a really long story, like how do I make it short? And then you start stumbling, you're like, okay, so basically when you're in the womb, like normally your face, and you just start explaining it from like all the way from like before you're even born, and you're like, and now I'm here, and this is my life, and now I'm 19, and I know how a lot of stories, so that's cool. And like, you're just like, they didn't even care, you know, they just sat here like they just wanted to know a short answer, and I just gave them like a 40-minute answer. So sometimes I do think that's a good one though, just to kind of say like you're just born that way. Like most kids, they don't even care. They're so inquisitive. They're just like, what's wrong with your face? And then when you actually say I was just born that way, they're like, okay, cool, I'll move on now. I'll carry on playing with whatever I was doing. So I just don't. I think it's sometimes the adults like, sometimes I'm like, how do you even have the nerve to stand there and say that to me? Like you're literally older than me. Or even like my friends, like as they got older and we became more aware of it, like they would say things sometimes, or like people in my year would say things. So I'm like, do you actually think that like that's okay? I think maybe because we have a cleft, maybe we like grow up quicker and maybe like we mature about certain things quicker. Like I think when I was 12, 13, I accepted a lot more people, like no matter their like whatever they look like or you know anything, I just didn't really care. And so I think in that respect we grow up quicker. So when people say things, I'm like, do you not even like think that's a bit like awkward to say? Like I just don't understand where it comes from.
And I think like people around you then, like people who are around you and kind of witness it, they also then like it's almost like they're just bystanding by accepting it. Because when I was like, okay, fair enough, I was in school, so you're right. Like I think going through like surgeries and everything, it does make you that little bit like grow up a little bit quicker. So I was probably the same kind of age, Claudia, and kind of like maybe like 11, 12. And like people at school, like there was these like particular people who just like bullied me for years and just like people around me just like let it let it be said, like including teachers who were just like, oh well, it's a bit awkward to actually address the situation, so we'll just say nothing. I'm like, that's just as bad.
Yeah, definitely.